Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we'll explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Off the Comma. I'm excited today to have our first interview guest of many to come. Today, we're talking to Austin Skelton, who comes to us from the state of New Jersey in the United States. All right. Well, this is super exciting. I am here with Austin. He is my first official interview guest on the Off the Comma podcast. And I'm super excited about this guest and super excited about the conversation that we're going to be having. I'm going to let Austin introduce himself in just a moment here. But, this whole episode is going to be a conversation and is going to be Austin sharing his story with us. And I want to acknowledge something for everyone. Is that, this isn't rehearsed. Austin hasn't told me what he's talking about, and Austin is sharing his true, authentic self. So I want to acknowledge him for that and the courage that takes, and to thank him for letting me be part of that storytelling. Without further ado, I'm going to just jump right in and say, Austin, welcome to the podcast, and tell us who you are and how you'd like to be known.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Paul, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And, I just wanted to acknowledge you for, getting this podcast off the ground and doing what you're passionate about. I'm really excited to share my story and to have this conversation with you today. So thank you again. You asked me to introduce myself, so I will. Today, I would describe myself as a barrier breaker, a traveler, an empath, a hustler, and a lifelong learner. And I say I would describe myself as that today because all those titles or labels or whatever you would call them are subject to change because I may be someone else 6 days from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now.
Acknowledgement of change and evolution and growth. That's really cool. And I appreciate you describing yourself in that way too, because so many times on different podcasts, it's just in our world in general, right? Like you ask somebody to introduce themselves and they say, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a firefighter, or what have you. And we all identify with our professions. And I'm hearing you identify with your ways of being and traits about you. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And I'm going to keep that. So that's how I'm going to ask for people to introduce themselves going forward. So you're also a pace setter.
Trendsetter. Pace setter. I was going to say trendsetter, but I'll go ahead.
Let's go with yours. This is your platform today. That's awesome. So Austin, let's start with intention. I think that's really important. So what is your intention for yourself today?
Great question, Paul. I think it's important to explain my intention, or both our intentions for today, just a level set. So my intention is to tell my story, to tell my truth, and to be authentically and unapologetically myself in doing so.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my intention is that someone out there, through hearing your story, will see themselves in your experience and will treat themselves a little bit lighter and treat others a little bit lighter as a result of that connection and that understanding and that not feeling alone. So that's what I'm hoping to create with our conversation here today. So sitting on a comma, right? Like if you've listened to the trailer, you know what sitting on a comma means. But really, this whole conversation is about where we find ourselves stuck in life. So like with all of my future guests, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I've got 5 questions for you. We'll dig deeper as we get into the conversation, but that's going to be the framework for our conversation today. So my first question for you, Austin, is tell us about where you found yourself sitting on a comma in your life. And it can be a past experience, a present experience. Where have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
So, Paul, instead of divulging into any past commas that I've found myself sitting on, I'm going to share today a current comma that I'm stuck on and that it has been difficult for me to move past or just really handle over the last several months. So a comma that I'm currently stuck on right now is creating my personal and professional brand to share with the world. So in other words, I'm really embracing becoming a public figure and sharing my true identity and self with others.
Mm. You said trying to figure out your personal and professional brand because you want to become a public figure. What is it that feels stuck for you?
What really does feel stuck is it's myself internally. I'm holding myself back. I believe it's mostly a fear of kind of stepping out of my shell. It's one of those things once, you take a step forward and you realize that you may never have that old life again. It's kind of like once old saying, open the can of worms, or once the cat's out of the box. That's kind of what I envision once I, kind of step out of my private life and really start to engage in what I feel as is my authentic truth, both personally and professionally. I feel like as though I'm holding myself back with fear, self-doubt. It's just been a calm I've been stuck on for the last several months now.
What I'm hearing you say is there's like two identities that you're relating to at the moment. There's this kind of reserved or controlled identity. Correct me where I'm misstating. This is kind of how these conversations are going to unfold going forward, right? Like, correct me anything that I misreflect, but there's this kind of controlled, managed identity. And then there's this who I'm meant to be, larger, bigger, more connected with authenticity is what I think I'm hearing you say, identity. And you're somehow stuck in between the two. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, Paul. I do feel as though right now I have like one foot in my private life where I'm just kind of keeping everything to myself and to my loved ones and my inner circle. And on another foot in another life that I'm trying to step into, where I want to build community, build connections with others, and just let my true self and identity flow without filtering it through judgment, without filtering it through what I believe I should be present myself as, and not without filtering it through any insecurities or perceptions from others. So I definitely do feel that tension between those two identities or worlds right now.
And I also hear you saying that you have a vision of where you want to go.
Yes, Paul. And that's something, if I could go back and add an asterisk to the how would I introduce myself? That's something I definitely would add, is that I'm a visionary. And that's been a little bit difficult for me to say over the years because I never saw myself as that. But as I've matured into my mid and late 20s, I definitely have a strong vision for how I want my life to unfold and how I want to impact others through my personal and professional endeavors. So I definitely do have a clear vision. What I'm stuck on right now is allowing that vision to unfold and also to take the action steps necessary to move and propel that vision forward.
You said two things that really jumped off of the screen at me, is allowing it to unfold and taking steps. Or action, you said specifically.
There's a dual dynamic there, right? Like letting it unfold. Like I feel like I'm going downstream and it's just carrying me down and just letting it unfold. Cause that's where I feel like my career and what my passion and what my calling is calling me to be, is to be a public figure, open myself up, share my story, and try to influence others in that way. However, I know that I have to be intentional. I know I have to be disciplined, and I have to be very strategic about the action steps that need to be taken to carry out that vision. So it's definitely a balance between both. And to be frank, I'm struggling in both of those areas right now.
Yeah, well, and I hear that, and I can sense how frustrating this might be for you. And you've got a clear picture of this vision, and you have a clear understanding of kind of what's happening for you. It's really a good segue into my next question, which is, since you described yourself as being stuck or sitting on a comma with how to move forward, what is this creating for you right now? You've described it in a little bit, but open that question up. And what does this being stuck create for you?
Right. Yeah, it's created an opportunity for an immense amount of reflection and introspection. And in doing so, with peeling this comma back and kind of looking within myself, I think, as I mentioned before, I'm just seeing a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, to use another term, imposter syndrome, just doubting my capabilities and everything that I've accomplished, and thinking that it's due to some other external factor when really it's because of, my efforts and, by God's grace to getting me to where I am today. I've also realized, and that this has created for me a sense of truly inaction. Like I think this term really encapsulates it all. I've been feeling paralyzed with it. Like that vision is so clear. I mean, I've taken some of the initial action items to get this plan and vision rolling. However, I stopped really at step 1 and 2, and it's been that way for several months. Just this sense of paralysis and shying away from connecting with others and building the community that I want to build through creating this public domain and public figure for myself has been detrimental. That's something that I've really realized, is that to be able to step outside of that, I need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's what I've realized. And again, to sum it up, all of this has created a really big mirror for me to look back within myself. And when I look in that mirror, I'm just seeing a whole bunch of, I'm seeing a big dream, a large vision that's being imprisoned by fear.
That's pretty powerful. I mean, you've said a lot of really kind of profound and significant things here, right? I heard you talk about, I get through steps 1 and 2, and then I'm paralyzed. And I'm paralyzed partly because, or one of many reasons, is that I feel like an imposter. And I see these parts of me mirrored back, and I see my ability to create a vision and to see a vision. What's it like to be in that place? Because it sounds like you're really kind of in between or among a number of things.
Yeah, it is truly a frustrating place to be at, because I'm sitting here, like I said, reflecting on what's holding me back. And then I realized the answer is myself. I'm holding myself back. It's my mindset. It's my beliefs. It's that sabotaging voice, that inner voice inside my head that's telling me I'm not good enough. This isn't who you are. So while all that's so frustrating, it feels like a ball and chain on my ankle, I also simultaneously get to see the possibilities, right? The possibility that's right there in front of me, that's right out, like, and just within arm's reach if I take the baby step forward that I need to. And outside of just the possibilities, I get to see other people within my circle, friends, loved ones, and even acquaintances and associates living in their dreams and their truly authentic selves, and them building their vision. And that's truly just inspiring me. And although that inspiration is great, I found that although that external inspiration has been plentiful and abundant, it still hasn't been enough to start that internal spark. So I know that internal spark comes with me and a mindset change, and also just like I said before, taking that action.
You just described what you see in others, and it sounds like you've got really good evidence to support what you asserted, which is that these people are living their authentic lives and accomplishing and achieving what they want. We could go another path with the conversation, right? How do you know? What evidence do you have?
Right.
But I do want to just acknowledge is that you are looking at others. So would you say that there is a bit of comparison coming into play here when you look at others? Although you did say it inspires me. Right. So I definitely want to be careful with how I portray that, because I do believe comparison is the thief of joy, right? So when I say I look at others, it's definitely for inspiration. I get to see how others are modeling themselves in the public domain, whether it's with their professional or personal brand, or whatever they may be doing online. So there is definitely an element of, okay, I would like to take X, Y, and Z and try this, see if that would work for myself. However, in doing so, I definitely try to be mindful to not get in my head and compare myself for my progress. Right. And not to compare myself and saying I should be where they are, or I should have some of the things that they have, because I don't believe in that. I believe everyone runs their own race on their own time. Everyone has their own talents and blessings that they've acquired throughout their life and been given. And
I'm definitely confident and rest assured that my time is coming and that I do have the tools and talents necessary to make my vision come to life. I just have to do what needs to be done. So to answer your question, I mean, it definitely is tricky because, while I'm being inspired, I also have to rein back in that inner voice saying, well, why aren't you, if they're doing it, why aren't you doing it?
If I may I step in for a moment? And
please,
I asked, may I step in? And you and I both know I'm just going to do it anyway, right? Like that's part of what we do here. But
this is your show.
Well, it's our show right now, my friend. And so I do want to step in because I want to acknowledge you're very self-aware. You have a high degree of awareness of yourself. So I see that. Do you believe that about yourself?
I do. Yeah. I do. And I think it's a double-edged sword. I love being self-aware because it really does allow me to take a deeper look within myself. But also that self-awareness is sometimes, again, it can feel imprisoning as well when I'm not taking the action or doing what I believe needs to be done to reach a solution.
I could have spoken to this or acknowledged this earlier, but earlier you said imposter syndrome. What made you choose that word or that label or that description?
Yeah, I chose imposter syndrome because it's something I've been dealing with ever since I became a law student and ever since I joined this elitist profession of becoming a lawyer. And it's something that I've always thought, like, you're not good enough. Is this really who you were trying to be? Because, other people are doing it better or other people are doing it differently. That's why that word comparison comes in. Because when I think of imposter syndrome, not only is it self-doubt and doubting the capabilities and accomplishments and all the evidence to show that you can do this, you can accomplish this goal, and you can pursue your vision and make it a reality. It's also recognizing that inner voice really does want to compare you to some ideal model or ideal person or even role model. And that can be a dangerous place to be. And I've definitely felt that throughout the last several years of my life where I've been kind of dealing with that. And I've definitely noticed that come up when trying to push forward, me developing my own personal and professional brand.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm curious about that, right? Because as you're telling the story and you're describing this, you clearly are very accomplished and have gotten to this place in your, I'll call it your employed world, right? The job that you currently have or have recently had. I don't know. And I didn't ask you, and that's okay. But it seems like you have achieved and accomplished a brand. And now there's this different brand or persona that you're pursuing. And one seems like perhaps it was easier to achieve or visualize than the other.
Right. Yeah. So how I'm going to interpret that is, and also what I think I'm hearing you say is for my professional brand, for example, like I did corporate law for a larger law firm for about 1.5 years. And that was just so easy to sit back and kind of try to adopt that firm's brand or just keep my head down and focus on becoming a good lawyer and what it means to become a good lawyer and focus on my work. But now that I've transitioned and I'm finally proud to say that I'm living my passion and the reason why I went to law school, I'm now currently a civil rights lawyer. I feel that as though, although it's a blessing, I feel that pressure I'm putting on myself to continue to propel and push that brand forward of now doing exactly what I set out to do. I said, I'm going to go to law school. This is the end goal. And it's here sooner than I would have expected. And because it's living my dream and living my passion every day sooner than I would have expected, I think that's creating that additional pressure for me to really put out the content, put out the version of myself that I want to put out, portray to the world, and to really just create and develop my brand and that professional aspect around my career.
With your permission, maybe not with your permission. What I believe I'm hearing you say, Austin, is that, well, observation. Through your story, I could say, but you are putting your brand out there. You are creating your vision, because what you just described is I transitioned from a role that maybe wasn't a fit for me or wasn't the fit any longer to you got more animated, and you said it with much more emphasis when you said, I'm a civil rights attorney and I'm doing these things now. But then you also said, yeah, but I'm not enough posts, not enough this and not enough that. And it sounds like the place you're stuck is on these tactical things. Perhaps you are doing more to advance your outcomes than you're acknowledging. Any truth in that?
Oh, Paul, absolutely truth in that. And that's why I was so ecstatic to just join this, be one of your first guests on your podcast, because I just have tremendous love and respect for you as a friend, mentor, and coach. And just for you being able to reflect that back to me, it really did make me realize that, yeah, I am doing a lot right now. Right. I'm learning a whole new area of law. I'm learning from an attorney who's very bright and smart, and I'm building relationships with clients and advocating for them for matters that are not only important to me, but that really do affect their livelihood. So I definitely am doing the things. But to your point, it definitely is more so the tactical, tangible things that I feel as though I'm not accomplishing as fast as I would like. I think for myself, I just have this added pressure or own expectation of myself to get everything done so fast, like 1, 2, 3, right? Like I've only been in this role for a few months now. So it's definitely been an adjustment. And I think that's going to be the next step for me as I try to come off this comma. And when I know I eventually will, is to adjust my expectations. And of course, in doing so, taking action towards my goal.
It's a good place to ask the third question. And that is, what have you learned about yourself as a result of being on this comma, being stuck?
So the first thing that I've learned is to embrace your own insecurities, because we all have them. Secondly, to ask for help, because in this situation, I needed help. I've received help. And to be clear, I still do need some help, right? So I still have the more execution on that part. But again, embrace your insecurities, ask for help, and to just do the damn thing, even if you're scared, right? Like, so even if that fear, even if that doubt is holding you back, do it with that fear and that doubt in mind, and just persevere and take one step at a time. So that's what I've learned, doing some of that now. Some of that still needs to get done. I believe that's exactly why I wanted to share this story and share this comma that I'm on, as opposed to past commas that I struggled with and eventually overcame, because this is just very real for me right now. And it's been a challenge. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've learned.
I'd love to tap in just a little bit more on something specific that you said. You said essentially what you said is do it scared. A lot of times when we have conversations with people that we care about, and they're like, I want to overcome my fear so I can do the thing. And I've always been a big proponent of, you may never overcome the fear. How do you do it anyway? Right. So you essentially said, do it scared.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you?
I believe doing it scared really comes down to digging deeper and understanding your why for what you're doing, for the outcome or vision that you want to achieve. Peel back the what it is and how you're going to do it, and then just zone in on that why, and why it's important to you, why it's important that you create the content that you want to create, or you create this, for me, creating the brand that I want to create. Why it's important, and just continue to focus in, pray, and meditate on that daily, so that why just becomes the driving force and motivation behind your action, instead of allowing those thoughts of self-doubt and allowing that fear to creep in to paralyze you towards inaction.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it, Austin? And it's not a gotcha moment, but it is a really profound observation, right? Is you just acknowledge doing it scared means doing it while you feel afraid and not allowing it to paralyze you. And yet you started this conversation with the fact that you're feeling paralyzed.
Right. And I definitely have enough, like you said, self-awareness. And also humility to admit that I haven't been focusing as much on my why. I've definitely been looking. I've recently, the last several months, I've been looking at just the outcome. What do I want this vision to look like? I know the steps that I want to take, and I know there's some steps that I'm not fully aware of or cognizant of that I'm going to need to take. However, I've been just getting lost in on each individual tree. And instead I haven't zoomed out and looked at the forest, and the forest in my case is my large why. And that's something that, I'm going to move forward with, that I'm taking from sharing my story with you and your viewers and listeners on your podcast, is that I'm going to go back and continue to reflect, meditate, and pray on my why and take action based off of that.
That is really powerful. And thank you for that insight. And it's almost like, hey, if there was a little nugget in here that I might take away, it's like paralysis seems to sometimes, when it shows up in my life, paralysis is the thing that, oh, now I have to study it and so forth. And it's like paralysis kind of becomes the object. And what I'm hearing in your story is, what if paralysis isn't the object to be studied? Paralysis is the warning light of something else. And so what I think I'm hearing you say, or rather how I'm choosing to interpret it, is paralysis isn't the thing. Paralysis is the sign that you're not clear on your why.
Yes. No, that was absolutely, that was profound and well synthesized, Paul, because for a while, I think like I said, this felt like a calling, right? Like I said, it's been a simultaneous, feeling of kind of going downstream, but also knowing that I have to take these specific steps to achieve this vision and goal. And I think going downstream and going with the flow and kind of following my calling, I haven't really sat back and reflected and prayed on my why. Why is this important to me? I think at a surface level, I understood why I wanted to do it, of course, right? In a sentence or two. But again, I think it'll be much more meaningful for myself and to encourage the listeners to, if they find themselves relating to my story of being stuck on a comma, understand your why and truly, and maybe journal on that, right? Because I know journaling in the past has worked for me. So again, that's something that I agree with you. I think the paralysis has definitely been, is not the object, and it's definitely been kind of the warning sign here.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the question: what is your why?
Great question. So my why for wanting to become a public figure and share my life personally, professionally, and to create that brand is to simultaneously help other people and to inspire change throughout the community. And I say community broadly, meaning whether it's my community of loved ones, whether it's my community of potential clients, whether it's my community of followers. I intend to do that both through my professional experience and role as a civil rights attorney. I intend to do that as my role as a coach. I intend to do that as my role as an eventual public speaker and as an advocate for marginalized groups and stigmatized topics such as mental health, LGBTQ rights, and advocating for just various groups such as, Black and brown people and migrants and such things that are topics and causes that are important to me. I intend to make my brand and those causes in those areas that I really want to focus on a center of, my brand and what I care about. Just share with the world to inspire change and to inspire action.
So meaningful, and none of us could even understand how meaningful it is to you, right? That's so uniquely personal for you. I mean, that is your why. And I hear the word that came up while you were talking is representation.
Yes. Yeah. It makes sense, right? For my career choice, right? I want to represent and advocate for others. But I don't only want to do that in the context of being an attorney. I want to do that in the context just for speaking about social issues, or speaking about and sharing instances and stories about my experiences with my mental health, and as a young Black man, and about how men are usually stigmatized for sharing their emotions and talking about mental health. I want to kind of be a voice and a leader on that eventually. There's just so many things that, like you said, Paul, I do want to be represent, again, to encourage people to speak up, encourage people to get help, encourage people to change their lives. That's why I want to create and push forward this public figure or personal brand, because I know it's not only going to be beneficial for others, but it's going to continue to push me towards my ultimate calling and lead me to live in my purpose every day.
And it seems as though you're building a picture of possibility for others as well. Yeah.
Yes, because I felt as though a lot of people in my life have instilled that picture and that all the avenues of possibility for me as well. So that's just a way that I want to pay it forward.
Question 4 for you, Austin, is what has changed for you as a result of sitting on this comma?
Yeah. So what has changed for me is the realization of, how bad I want this. It's just been building up all this energy and all this delay, and just seeing how time flies when you're just sitting on this comma, when you're just sitting on your ass, watching your dreams and visions be delayed. It's making me realize that, one, how bad I want this, and two, that all these opportunities are passing me by because I'm delaying my destiny and seizing the blessings that have been given to me. So what I've come to learn is just that if I just to follow my gut and to just do the damn thing, like we said before, just do it scared. So what I realized has changed for me is that this is something that I truly do want, right? Because there's been, like I said, I've struggled and wrestled with that self-doubt and that imposter syndrome, which has made me relentlessly question if this is important to me, if I want this, because there's been multiple times where I could have just kicked this to the side. Even though I've been sitting on this comma, I know I do want this. I know that I am meant for this. And I know that despite what my inner voice may be saying or the doubts that I may have about myself, I'm going to do it. And I will do it scared. I will do it with God by my side. I will do it with the support from my loved ones. And I just know of what it's the feeling on the other side of accomplishing this and achieving this outcome. It's just going to be monumental. And just like all the other commas that I've gotten off of my life, it's going to be more evidence and more data for me to point to say that I've done it once before. I can do it again and overcome this obstacle.
Well, and it sounds like this is strengthening your resolve too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Paul. I mean, that's part of the reason why I selfishly wanted to share this story, because I knew that it would be a deep dive, right? Like I know how you are, and you don't leave many stones unturned. So I definitely wanted the added scrutiny. I definitely wanted the inspired external introspection, and for me to dig a little bit deeper. So this has absolutely strengthened my resolve, and I'm excited to continue to move forward and eventually share the end product or beginning of what's to come.
Here's the last question for you. And I think you've kind of touched on this a little bit. So I'll invite you to add to what you've already shared or even approach it from a different point of view. But what does getting off the comma look like for you?
For me, getting off this comma specifically looks like, one, just the word that just jumps to mind is discipline. I need to be disciplined and regimented in my time specifically, and how I manage my time and what I'm giving my energy and capacity towards, because I know I have a tendency to spread myself quite thin. And for me to really just accomplish this vision, I know that I have to be disciplined, and not only putting the time aside for it, but to just putting my mentality towards it and being disciplined and doing that every day. That's something that I know to get off this comma, I have to change my mindset instead of thinking, okay, I have to do all these tasks all at once and just make this really big leap in terms of progress towards it. I believe progress is incremental. And I think that's what this comma is really challenging me to change and shift my paradigm towards, is to be disciplined enough to do something I truly care about, to do something that I'm truly passionate about a little bit every day. So that first word is discipline that comes to mind. Secondly, it's discomfort, right? Like I think we said it before, is just doing the damn thing scared, and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this large sense of discomfort just isn't going to go away. And I have to be okay with that. and just live with that on a day-to-day while I'm being disciplined, taking small steps forward towards my vision. So lastly, I have to, again, it's going back to remembering my why and just being dedicated, just showing that dedication of why I want to be a public figure, why I want to open my life up, and share my brand personally and professionally, and just be dedicated to that. And like you said, just continue to strengthen my resolve and remember my why, just so I stay dedicated. So in short, I wanted to leave you with a little alliteration there, some discipline, discomfort, and dedication.
That's awesome. I'm always down for some alliteration, and it's meaningful. It's meaningful and it's purposeful, and I appreciate that. And I'll ask one additional question as part of 5. And I'm not asking for a full blown action plan and declaration like we do in coaching, in the coaching practice. But for the sake of an example and inspiring others, like, what is your next step, or what's your first next step?
So my next step is I need to, for me personally, and because I've just been struggling to do this by myself and set aside time to outline what I want my personal and professional brand to look like. Specifically for me, it's getting my website off the ground. I feel like this is something I've talked with you before offline, but in order to do so, something that I've realized really works for me is getting together with a friend or someone that I really trust, and that where we could just work together and kind of share space, working on our personal goals, working towards building our visions, whether they may be aligned or completely in different avenues of life. I just find that it's also a good sense for me to hold myself accountable, but also to again be comfortable with that discomfort in the moment, knowing that I have that support. So the next step for me is I'm gonna hit up one of my buddies and say, hey, do you want to go to the library, book a room, and get some coffee, and sit down for a few hours and just work on some of the things we've been trying to accomplish for a while, whether it's for their work or something that they're trying to create in their lives, or make their dreams come true. I think for me, that is going to be the next step, is just sucking my pride up, being vulnerable, and saying, hey, I could use your help by having your presence to hold me accountable and to inspire me to just do the damn thing. So that's what the next step looks like for me.
All right. You sound clear on that. And it sounds like that's going to move you forward. So Austin, thank you for the time and for the vulnerability and the honesty and the transparency and the courage to share your experience. It's not always easy, I know, for us to talk about being stuck, much less sharing it with people in our circles, much less potentially sharing it with the whole world. So thank you for that. I want to end with just real quick. What would you acknowledge yourself for right now?
Thank you again, Paul, for having me. And I really want to acknowledge myself for just being brave enough to look myself in the mirror and say, what I'm currently doing isn't serving myself, isn't serving my goals, and isn't serving my interests. And just keeping it a buck, right? And saying, this is what I need to do. And this is areas that I need to improve in to be able to reach the outcome that I want to. So I really want to acknowledge myself just for talking about something that's difficult, like you said, being vulnerable and just keeping it real with myself. Because if we don't keep it real with ourselves, you're not going to be able to keep it real with anyone, and most certainly will be likely detrimental to achieving your goals. So thank you again, Paul, for having me. It's truly been a pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to getting off this comma.
So great to have you here, Austin. Really appreciated the conversation today. You have already shared with me a list of contact information and acknowledgments. And with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and read that off for you. So our listeners can find you on LinkedIn at Austin Skelton in New Jersey, USA. And the link is in the show notes. And you would also like to acknowledge a couple of organizations and causes that matter to you and help boost these organizations and creators. So I know you are on the board of directors with a small nonprofit in New Jersey that teaches the art of public speaking to school-age youth in Black and Brown communities called New Jersey Orators. So the link to that website is in our show notes. Also very important to you is the Lena Harris Foundation. Their main focus is to assist in finding a cure for lupus and multiple sclerosis. And the webpage is in our show notes for that organization. And I understand that one's personal to you because that foundation is actually run by a close friend of yours. And last but not least, the Born This Way Foundation, co-founded and led by Lady Gaga and her mother, that supports the mental health of young people and works with them to build a kinder and braver world. And again, that URL is going to be in the show notes. So thank you not only for telling us how to get in touch with you, but also for boosting and supporting these other causes and organizations that can always use additional kind of PR and press and exposure out there. So I'm excited to be able to include that in our episode show notes. Well, that was powerful work from a powerful human. I invite you to think about what you learned from this conversation, and I encourage you to write it down. I can't tell you how magical it can be to set aside your expectations and let the thoughts flow out of your head and onto paper. Freestyle journaling has been a powerful practice in my life. You never know what you might discover about yourself. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. Follow me on social media at Off the Comma. And be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. As always, keep noticing. We'll see you next time.